Welcome to Glass Half Full Moon, where if we didn't apply chapstick at every opportunity, Full Moon Features would go out of business. I am your host this evening, Gabe, with my lovely co-host, Casey. Casey, how are you doing today?
You know, I'm a little tired.
A little bit tired. Do you need to go to sleep and get have some sweet dreams?
Yeah, I could certainly go for a nap right about now, but sometimes a lot of the times my philosophy is that if I'm asleep I can't get into trouble, but I think our movie of discussion today proves otherwise.
Correct. Today we watched a film known as Shadowzone. And Casey, the question of the hour. Was this a good movie?
I So far we have watched 3 full moon features, and while this wasn't a good movie, it wasn't a bad movie. I would actually say it was better than Puppet Master, if only for the fact that some of the characters were pretty great, and they also had some really great character actors, but there were still some things that were just plain terrible.
I'm gonna have a bit of a contrarian opinion. I think this was a good movie. Not a great movie by any standard, but I think this was a good movie.
By Full Moon's standards, this was a good movie.
I'd say by just general B movie standards.
Okay. You know, I see where you're coming from on that. I do. Um, I will say this was definitely better than Puppet Master.
I would agree with you there.
But it definitely was nowhere near in comparison to the movies that they stuck onto the poster. In
No,
reference.
on the poster they reference both Alien and The Thing, and the tagline I've seen repeated for this movie is in Aliens no one can hear you scream, but in Shadow Zone that is all you hear, which I think they thought was really cool but is actually super lame.
Yeah, a little bit. If you have to reference another famous film in both your poster and your tagline, you obviously didn't have many high hopes for this movie, and you were trying to get views by proxy.
Right. And while we're on the topic of the cover of the film, we should say that it is the biggest lie in cinematic history.
Yeah, I've seen some worse ones, but I can't recall them at the moment, and I'm sure we're gonna see worse ones as we go through Full Moon's catalog. But it definitely has nothing to do really with the film, except maybe the naked lady in the tube.
Yeah, but the tube isn't even the same tube that's in the movie.
I know. But you also have to consider this poster was drawn and they embellished it a lot.
It's a pretty good poster, I will admit. It's very interesting. But to get into the film proper, we actually start off with a bit of an improvement. Only a minute and a half of opening credits.
And
And they
opening credits,
actually
yeah, that don't have weird music over odd still images.
yeah, the opening credits are actually used to forward the plot. It's setting up the setting, and it's like giving you the location, and it's like showing you signs of like keep out government property.
Also, you gotta love a place called Jackass Flats.
They never explain that name.
They don't, but you gotta love a place called Jackass Flats.
Oh yeah, I wish I knew how it got that name.
Yeah, but it's one of those government testing sites. They're never gonna tell you what it's for.
So we move on and we get our main character of the movie, a man by the name of
Hick
Hickock.
Hiccup. Which honestly, I I was like that name's a pain in the butt.
So we got Captain Hiccup.
Yeah, let's just call him Hiccup.
and he's been brought to Jackass Flats, and we meet another character by the name of Shivers, which I can only assume is because he's got some kind of disorder that causes his hand to be shaking.
Well, I mean, it's either it's either that he's constantly a little shaky, he's an absolute scaredy cat, or it's both. Which we will find out later on in the movie. It's both.
It's both.
It's both.
But Shivers picks him up. He takes him to Jackass Flats where we meet some of the other characters, and they actually do some. If I'm being honest, I'm kind of happy with the world building that they do here.
Yeah.
Because you go to the base and Shivers is explaining like, "Yeah, this is an old decommissioned army base. There used to be like 2,000 people running around, but now I'm the only one left to maintain it now, and I can't quite keep everything running." And it's, you know, genuinely some good sort of atmospheric world building.
And then they introduce the worst character in the movie, which is Dr. Earhart.
You think she's the worst character?
I think she's the worst.
Okay. Interesting.
I think she's the worst because all of her line deliveries are incredibly flat. Like, it seems like her only point to the film is expository, much like Gina was in Meridian.
Right.
Her only point is exposition, and then later on she serves as a Dr. Pretorius style character. And also applying a vigorous amount of chapstick.
Oh, there's so much chapstick. Okay. So do you want to know a fact about that actress that I discovered while looking up this movie?
What?
She won an Oscar.
For what?
For One Flew Over a Cuckoo's Nest.
She was in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest?
She was Nurse Ratched.
She's Nurse Ratched.
Yes.
Okay, that flat delivery now makes sense. Okay, this might actually be so far the most star-studded film that Full Moon has, because we've got Nurse Ratched now, and we've got two very notable character actors coming up later on.
Oh yeah, yeah. Um, we got Nurse Ratched, who is Earhart,
Who is Van Fleet's assistant.
who's Van Fleet's assistant, and has a weird line that's like, I was working with my husband and then he died, where Captain Hiccup is like, "Oh, I'm sorry he died," and she's like, "Oh, don't worry, I'm not."
Yeah,
Which
that's...
is, it's just a very odd uh, delivery that never really comes up again.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, I was my husband's assistant, and then I wasn't.
Which, could be good characterization if it ever mattered.
Yeah, but it's never gonna matter. This is Full Moon, nothing ever matters.
Nothing ever matters. But we actually get a very fun or very interesting scene where they're discussing over some food, just general stuff. And one thing I did genuinely like about this movie is they never came out and told you, at least not in the beginning, what's going on at the facility, why this guy is there, what the what the experiment is. They don't ever explain that, so they're just there talking about whatever, and then all of a sudden the captain's like, "And by the way, I'm going to need to see the body." And it's just like, whoa, okay, I want to know. Right, this is, you've successfully gotten me by the hook.
It's like, wait, there's a body involved. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's some good like drip feeding of information that just makes you kind of want to keep learning more about what's going on.
And also the introduction of like my favorite character in the film, the cook, Mrs. Cutter.
Mrs. Cutter, who was a whorehouse madam, apparently.
Yeah, and decides to serve Shivers a rat in a rat trap for dessert because she's like, "What? When you gonna close my damn air vents? Because these rats keep getting into my kitchen."
And then she's like, if you don't get it done within a day, you're gonna have to start being careful. You're gonna start having to look in your food before you eat it. and it's just that she is so aggressive,
I love her.
and yeah, I can understand. It's again, she's just one of those weird, quirky characters.
I still love her. She's like my
Oh
favorite.
yeah, but we move on and we meet our yet another character, Dr. Kidwell, who loves animals. She's got a pet monkey. She's got some rabbits. I think some cats. I heard meowing in that
I
scene.
I also heard meowing. I was like, where the hell are those cats coming from? But yeah, like apparently they're all her lab animals that obviously once they got onto human trials in whatever experiment they're running, they just decided to keep them around. So now she's got rabbits and a cute little pet monkey named Bingo.
Bingo. Bingo's a good boy.
Bingo is a good monkey.
But there should I feel like there is a way to I feel like they would perhaps euthanize lab
In
animals.
in a normal setting, more than likely they would be euthanized or they'd be rehomed in the case of like the
Right.
rabbits or something, but you know, this isn't a movie that cares too much about the finer details in regards to scientific principles
Fair enough.
and also scientific procedures and whatnot. Considering after they introduced Dr. Kidwell and her monkey, Captain Hiccup just decides, okay, take me to the body, and they bring the monkey into the morgue.
They bring the monkey into the morgue, and they well, first of all, they find the body, and it's been like autopsied, like the head brain cap is off, and
There's
rib
there's
cage is open.
there's organs in the scale, and the sink's super bloody.
It's a good prop. I'm gonna give them that. It's a good prop.
It is a very good life cast, I will say that much. But also my big issue is like those sinks are so filthy. That is not sterile, and also that monkey in that environment is a health hazard 100%. Your autopsy room is no longer sterile.
Well, yeah, it goes to a great scene where the monkey's like doing bongos on the brain. Gets blood all over Earhart,
Yeah.
which I think is the first scene of chapstick. I think that is the first time she applies chapstick.
I should have gone back into the chapstick count on this one, but I did not have the time.
It's at least five. I know it's at least five.
It is at least 5, and if she's not applying it, it's in her hand.
But they describe that this fellow was part of the experiment and died from a stroke that originated from a hemorrhage in the premodal cortex. Now I know something about brain structure, and there's no such thing as the premodal cortex. So already we're in it with the science jargon.
Yeah.
But they say that the death was not experiment related, and that's a shitty lie because if that's the case, why autopsy him?
Yeah, it's like that makes no sense. Also, considering the way they explain the other test subjects as well later on, there's no way that he would have died not from experiment related causes.
Yeah, it's 100% a lie. And now I'm thinking and realizing if he died from a stroke and these all this experimentation they're doing is based on brainwaves and stuff, why'd they open up his rib cage?
Ugh. For science?
We got all this extra time, and government funding isn't going to let us waste it, so might as well just see what's going on in here.
Woo! He must have really liked McDonald's.
Oh, there's so many chicken McNuggets.
Let's see what he had as his last meal, unwillingly.
So, after
Also,
they autopsy the
why
body,
are our scientists suddenly southern?
because it doesn't, because the film doesn't make them any less ridiculous.
That is true.
But we go forward. Captain Hiccup is satisfied with the autopsy, and we move on, and go into the experimentation room, and we meet another character, Wiley, who I also very enjoy. I would say he's the best character.
I do enjoy Wiley very much, but you also have to consider Wiley is noted character actor Miguel A. Nunez Jr. Jr., who I know as Spider from Return of the Living Dead.
Yes, I was gonna let you pop that cork. He is there's some names here,
Yeah, for real.
and it's a shame because I literally every other like actor, main character actor, has gone on to do a lot of other stuff, except for Captain Hiccup. His IMDb page doesn't even have a picture.
Maybe he was just one of those dudes that got like is what is the equivalent of like how people will get workers from the side of the from outside the Home Depot? What is the equivalent of that for actors?
I don't know. The unemployment line.
Oh no. That's terrible.
It's called a starving artist for a reason.
Yeah.
But we meet Wiley, and he does such a blatant like product placement sip of his Coca-Cola.
I noticed that
Like
too. It was
it
so
was
blatant.
super blatant, so blatant.
I noted that in my notes, like Coca-Cola product placement. I was like, this movie was sponsored by Chapstick, and then they had a brand deal with Coca-Cola too.
Right. And then we go into the actual testing chamber, and what we see is this underground base. There's these two pods. One of them has a woman, one of them has a man, and they are sort of in like a deep sleep.
And they're both completely naked.
And we get tits. Yes.
I mean, what do you expect? It's an early 90s full moon feature.
We need a tits counter because in the 3 films we've watched, we've had 5 distinct pairs of tits.
I mean, they were nice. They were a nice pair of tits.
I mean, yeah, but and to be fair to the film, they also show full schlong.
Oh yes, like I also noted that in my notes, like flaccid penis front and center.
At the very least, it's very clinical nudity.
It is, but I'm also like, why were they not allowed to wear their pajamas?
Because science.
I mean, even
Science demands sacrifice.
if they're testing dream thingies, like standard sleep studies let you wear your pajamas. Why are they naked in just shower caps?
Because this is nothing of a standard sleep study.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so we meet Dr. Van Vliet, who is besides having just a great name, is decorated character actor James Hong.
Yes. Like this is definitely a very star-studded B film.
So good. A lot of people will probably know him. He's the dad from Kung Fu Panda, like the goose.
Yes.
You did the voice for him.
Yes.
And a bunch of other smaller roles.
He's a very well-known character actor.
But we meet him, and so they're talking about Dr. Earhart, and she leaves, and he's like, "Oh yes, she's a great assistant, but can be a little bit tricky at times. I think she just needs a good." He does this motion with his hand that I'm not entirely certain as to what he was insinuating.
I think he's insinuating that she needs to get laid since she's been without a man for so long, apparently. But you know, this is also a Chinese American character actor playing a man with a Dutch surname.
I was about to say he does not look like a Van Fleet.
Yeah. So I mean, good on Full Moon for not typecasting him. But also Dr. Van Fleet's a major creeper.
He's super creepy. He's so creepy. I specifically have in my notes Van Fleet is a weirdo.
Yeah, mine says he's a creeper.
Oh yeah. We go into the actual science of the experiment a bit here, and I'm going to rip it to shreds because he says, we disconnect the brainstem from the cortex. Now, there is no part of the human brain just called the cortex. I assume he means the cerebral cortex, which is all of that good, sweet, thinky bit on the outside with all the wrinkles.
That good, sweet, thinky meat.
The good, sweet, thinky meat. And disconnecting that from the brainstem is just brain death, or is just paralysis.
I was gonna say, at the very least, that is straight up. I was gonna say that would guarantee turning your experiments into quadriplegics, but no, you're right. That is full on paralysis. Like, we're talking, maybe the most you can move is your eyes.
Yeah, if you are cutting it off right at the brainstem, that means you're I'm assuming it's a thorough cut. And you're just straight up not going to be able to move your body.
Yeah.
But he says the vague line of, "Oh no, it's not dangerous. We do it digitally." What? I mean, I feel like Reddit is a good way to digitally disconnect your cerebral cortex from your brainstem, but I don't know if they have that at this point in time.
I I almost want to feel like he means like maybe laparoscopically, but
Maybe.
looking at those facilities, they do not have the machines in order to do that. So if he means digitally, I think he means like, oh, we shut it down via an external source.
We have some nodes or shit on the back of their neck that's like stimulating them to
It
not.
Yeah, that's blocking those signals. I mean, that's the only thing that makes any sense. But then again, this is a full moon feature. It's not supposed to make sense.
I know, but what am I if I don't tear holes in things that were never meant to have holes in them?
Yeah, but I mean, this also is the reveal of why Captain Hiccup is there, and at which point it actually starts to make a little sense, because NASA's interested in this experiment because of its potential use in spaceflight.
Yes, this could potentially, if you could like just be like, okay, we're turning off your brain now, wake you up in like 50 years when you're at Mars, bye.
Yeah, I mean, that would be exponentially um, less problematic for their astronauts in possibility. Like, your main issue would be the muscle atrophy, of course, and then the life support systems. But I mean, you're gonna save a shit ton of money on food and whatnot. So like, it makes sense as to why NASA would be interested in this, and also makes sense for the fact that obviously this project has lost a lot of its funding, which is why it's on such a skeleton crew at this point.
Oh yeah, and this is kind of why I say that this is a good B movie, is because even though it's full of like nonsense bullshit science mumbo jumbo on a base level, all of the plot points and the story beats and like all the things you're supposed to get make sense in like a logical sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? Unlike something like Puppet Master or God forbid Meridian, where it's like, oh, I guess this is happening now because we need the plot to move forward.
Yeah, no, everything so far has made a lot of sense. Also with like Hiccup's asking to recreate the experiment. Like, obviously, you want to see what went wrong. Science is trial and error on many fronts. Like, was this a one off issue? If we recreate this, will it happen again? At that point, we can pinpoint what exactly went wrong. That makes total sense.
Yeah, it. I kept thinking throughout watching this was if this were a different director and maybe had a bit more money, this could be a genuinely like great B movie. Like with just like a little bit different, a little bit more competency, a little bit more money, maybe we could have gotten there. But it was just a bad timeline for this movie.
I would say so, yeah. But I think this also had the benefit of not having Charles Band directing it.
Okay, we're just straight up saying it how it is. Okay,
I mean, it had to be addressed.
it had to be addressed.
It had to be addressed.
So Captain Hiccup, he is like, okay, print me out the data that you recorded when the experiment happened and this guy had a stroke. And they're like, sure. I hand it to him and he's like, whatever. This guy's not going to understand what the fuck the data means. Give it to him. And so he goes to sleep and he wakes up after Shivers is like, hey, Captain, there's something you need to see. And they go and they start crawling through the vents and they get a scene of like all the doctor characters dissecting these bodies, all of them naked except for their aprons.
Not all of them. Not all of them. I think Van Fleet was the only one that was naked.
Oh, they were all in very limited clothing at the very least.
Yeah, but Van Fleet was definitely super naked except for his apron.
Which, very progressive of Full Moon. And we get a scene where Earhart is like, hey, doctor, would you like to eat? And she's holding up a still beating heart. And then we realize it was all a dream.
Dream sequence.
But, unlike in Puppet Master, a nightmare is thematically relevant.
Also, I will say this is like the first full moon feature we've watched that has equal opportunity nudity.
I hope to see more of it in the future.
As do I. As great as boobs are, if you're not balancing it out with a little dick every now and then, what's the point?
Absolutely.
And I mean a little dick.
So we move forward. We go back. It's the next day. They're in the experiment room, and Captain Hiccup is like, "I want you to repeat the experiment that happened on the other guy. If you are so confident that it is not the reason that this man died, I want you to do the experiment on this other man you currently have in the egg." They refer to the pods as eggs. And they are like, "Well, fuck. I guess we gotta do it." There's a good line delivery here from I think it is Kidwell, who's like, if the first time it was an accident, if you go through with it this time, it's murder, and it's a tense scene where barely any action is going on.
Yeah, and they're also starting to realize, oh crap, Hiccup's not as stupid as we think he is.
Oh yeah, he's not just some big army boy, but they set the machine to 31F. They start going through. They are like, "Oh, I can't know how long we can hold it at these levels, Gordon." And then Hiccup is like, "All right, I've seen enough. Good work." And they head on off, and everything seems to be okay. But then,
Stop motion bulgy veins.
oh, look at the veins. So many veins on his body. I don't know if that was stop motion or if that was just literally like them drawing on the footage.
Either or. But I mean, I think it was stop motion just because of the way they were shadowed. Like that felt practical to me.
Yeah, it wasn't a bad effect. Again, I don't think there's a single like bad effect in this movie. They're not super great, but none of them are bad.
Yeah, and then after we get our stop motion bulgy veins, we get head explosion.
Head explosion. I rewinded it and watched it like 3 times. It was so good.
Yeah, well, it definitely was a good explosion effect.
I'm gonna come out here and be controversial. I'm gonna say that was a better head explosion than Chopping Mall.
Chopping Mall is great because it's bad.
I'm talking purely on head explosion.
Yeah, purely on practical effects, yeah, it was better than Chopping Mall.
It is a great head explosion, and we get some scenes of them being like, well, Where's the override coming from? Oh, it's John Doe. Oh no, the pipes are exploding and Nickelodeon gack is just oozing out all over the test facility.
I saw that. I was like, why are the pipes leaking? It's never addressed. It never happens again. It's just that one random scene where the pipes start leaking goo.
It's Nickelodeon gack. They got it on discount.
No, it's not Nickelodeon gack because that's too expensive.
It's Nickelodeon lack.
It's Nicolas Cage back fat.
Ugh, that's horrible.
I thought that was my job, to be the horrible one.
But we get some lovely like early internet style like not knowing how computers work here where Wiley is just typing questions into the computer and it's able to answer them like straight back to him.
Yeah. I noticed that too. I was like, what do? Ask computer. Computer give answer. But I don't think that was actually the computer. I think that was actually the entity John Doe answering them using the computer's interface.
True, but that doesn't excuse why he thought that just typing questions into the computer would
I know.
magically make the computer answer them.
I know. Like the way they were answered makes sense, but also like the way they got there makes no sense.
Yeah. It but then again, it's the same as like in the thing where they have the computer simulation of if the thing got out into a public square and starts corrupting things.
Yeah.
It's of the time. But they're like, okay, we got to get in there. We got to get the girl out. She's still alive. They go out, and they are starting to get her out when they're like, hold on, there is another entity in the room with you. There's another living creature in there. And for some reason, Dr. Van Vliet locks everyone else out of the room and goes to deal with it by himself. Where we get the best monster of the movie, which is Pretty Princess Crown Monster.
I called her Tumorous Prom Queen.
Tumorous Prom Queen. It's so jarring.
It's so random and it's not explained until the very end.
It's not explained to the very end.
I legitimately was like, I had to rewind it to make sure that it wasn't explained and rewatch it because I was just like, well, why suddenly Tumorous Prom Queen? But also props to Shadowzone for having a horror movie where the token black character doesn't die first.
Right. It's the evil scientist gets his comeuppance in the first act.
Yep. Van Fleet is the first to die as the shutter for the screen into the viewing area has been closed, and we hear his screams as this thing pounds numerous dents into the steel screen.
It's a very powerful creature, and it is as much as I love tiara wearing monster girl, they really missed out on the chance of making it an effective scene of the don't show your monster until it's in the best possible light.
Yeah.
Because they don't even show the monster for that long. It's only there for a second, but it's just enough to sort of ruin the flow.
And even then, this isn't the monster's true form.
It is not the monster's true form.
Because as they're regrouping to figure out what in the hell is going on, Earhart explains that what they've discovered in their experimenting is that their dreams can access parallel dimensions of sorts when you hit a deep enough sleep state. And this John Doe entity is a being from that other dimension that has used that state to cross over into our dimension.
I'm sorry, did you accidentally start watching From Beyond in the middle of this movie?
That's why when I watched this at first, I told you this is a weird like love baby between From Beyond and The Thing, because at this point we also discover that apparently this creature can shapeshift.
It is used effectively once in the entire film, but just a caveat to what you said, because when you say a love child between The Thing and From Beyond, also understand that this is carried to term by Full Moon Features.
I know, which is very funny because actually, Empire Entertainment was the one who put out From Beyond and was also founded by Charles Band.
You can't get sued for copyright if you're ripping off your own shit.
But to be fair, I also did previously refer to Earhart as a Dr. Pretorius style character towards the end.
Hmm. It's very similar.
Yes.
We also get in this moment a line that I love so much, which was Wiley is like they're like, okay, well the creature's in there, and they do another scan. It's like, well, it's gone. I can't get on the radar. Why is that? And Wiley's like, well, look at this. I had the computer analyze the organism's chemical structure, and I'm just, the science technobabble in this movie is exceptional, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
Yeah, like it it's just smart enough to make it sound like they know what they're talking about, but if you're smarter than the average B movie watcher, you know that it's total bullshit.
Right. So we get our eventual task, which is we need to fix the generator because the power's out, and the monster is lightly radioactive, which is for some reason keeping the elevator from working.
Basically, the entire site shut down and locked itself to keep any potential radiation from leaking out. And
Right.
this thing's just radioactive enough to trip that sensor into thinking, oh no.
And for some reason, we then let Shivers have a gun. Presumably the only gun in the facility because no one else gets one.
Yeah. And he does so well with it.
He does terribly with it.
It's funny that you thought I actually meant that.
So Shivers has a gun. Everyone goes off to do their shit, do their tasks. They gotta go and find the imposter. This is just the prototype for the Among Us style game. Like of there's an imposter among us and we need to go and do our thing.
Yeah. But see, that's also why it feels like it's got nods to The Thing. Because of that. It's like, oh, we need to find this thing, and realizing now that it can shapeshift, it can take on these things that we already know. So,
Yeah, it's not used effectively, but it is interesting.
because like Shivers and Cutter are in the kitchen, getting food together to leave, and Kidwell is on search for her monkey bingo, and Hiccup and Earhart's in the control panel applying chapstick.
Her actual job is to keep the other test subject alive, but she's just mainly applying chapstick. And Hiccup and Wiley are
Going to restart the generator.
right. And so Wiley runs off. I forget why.
He said he had to go to the bathroom.
Fair enough.
Like, legitimately, he said, Hiccup was like, where the hell did you go? And Wiley's like, I had to go to the bathroom.
Why didn't you tell me? But Shivers also runs off, leaving Cutter alone for another great scene, in my opinion, where Cutter is like, she kills one of the rats, and she's like, "Yeah, I gotcha, bitch." She's resetting the trap, and she's like putting it far back into the vent, and she starts like getting her arm chewed on. She's like being pulled into the vent, and like blood spraying out, and we get a scene of a giant fuck off rat busting through the wall, about to rip her to shreds.
Also, I don't remember. When we see her corpse later on, is that wall busted still? Because I don't remember if it was actually busted still, or if it was like total continuity error where it was just perfectly fine.
I wasn't paying enough attention, personally.
I wasn't either.
I'm not even sure if the camera angle was in such a way that we'd be able to see that, but we get a giant fuck off rat. We get more chapstick. We get Kidwell, who's looking for her escaped monkey, and she sees a rat and like falls 6 feet to the ground and like breaks her back, or she should have. And then she finds her monkey, and she's like, "Oh, he's a good monkey, Bingo. Bingo's being a good boy." She calls back to Shivers, and she's like, "Hey, yeah, I got my monkey, and we're good. Everything's cool." And Shivers is like, "Wait,
The fuck you mean you got your monkey? Your monkey's in the kitchen stuffing his face with grapes. And then we get a cameo appearance by the Sumatran rat monkey.
it, these these creature prosthetics aren't." I feel like the reason that we don't see more of them is because they're kind of shit.
Yeah, but like they're kind of shit in the good way, I will say.
I really wish we got more of the giant rat. Because that we're just seeing Cutter like fight a giant rat would have been great.
That does remind me. Let me look up something right quick. Okay, so this movie came out the same year as Graveyard Shift. I wonder if it's the same prop.
Graveyard Shift.
Stephen King's Graveyard Shift involves a bunch of miners facing off against some giant mutated rats. I wonder if this is the same prop.
I mean, it's got the same eyeless look. I would say it's a non-zero chance.
Yeah,
I will say that much.
but I still find it very hilarious that it's like, oh, I've got your monkey here, and then boom, Sumatran rat monkey.
Yeah, it's not like hunting things down in the way that the thing is in the thing.
It's almost like it's playing pranks.
Yeah, a little bit. Like in the thing, the alien is trying to assimilate people when no one's around, but the creature in this movie could have easily killed her at any point, but chose to only do it once she knew it was an imposter.
Yeah, it's playing with its food.
I guess, but we move forward and Shivers fucking sucks. He sucks so hard
Yeah.
because he starts losing his shit and just starts wildly firing at the walls.
Because a bit of water dropped on his hand.
And I did an account, and he shot like
15 times.
or at least 16, 15, upwards of 20 if we count the ones where it shows people running to help him as separate shots. And I looked it up specifically. The kind of shotgun he was using only has like a handful of shells that can be kept in at any given time. So he had like the best pump action shotgun ever. It just had a fucking TARDIS of shotgun shells.
Infinish shotgun.
Infinite shotgun. I would play that game in a heartbeat.
Eternal shotgun of the spotless mind.
But we Shivers fucking explodes.
I noticed that. It's like we Shivers gets to shooting, and then we find him again, being discovered by the others, and he just straight up exploded. Like no one knows how in the world he actually died. They just find like tattered bits of stuff everywhere and blood all over the walls and his glasses on the floor. He just straight up exploded.
And we get another one soon after that because Wiley and Hiccup are running away from the creature, and they run to an elevator, and Wiley is fixing it, and Hiccup gets inside. When the elevator door closes and Wiley's on the other side, and he seems to explode as well around the monster.
He gets pulled away off screen and then straight up explodes.
This movie has so many like human like eviscerations and detonations, like, and I'm here for it. I'm super here for it. I think that people exploding is such an underused kill in a lot of movies, and I enjoy it. Does that make me a bad person?
No, because that reminds me that I'm gonna need to give you a movie recommendation for later.
Okay. Okay.
If you like that sort of stuff, yeah, I've got a movie for you to watch later. But moving on, Hiccup meets back up with Earhart. And she's just like, "Where is everybody?" He's like, "They're all dead." And then she applies more chapstick.
It was at this point in my notes I was like, okay, what does the chapstick symbolize? Indeed, there has to be a deeper meaning to this chapstick. Is she like covering up her sins via the use of like a gelatin based lip gloss?
Like, her main role through the movie has been exposition and chapstick. Because at this point, she's been analyzing things, and she explains why the beast or the entity or John Doe, whatever it is, because this thing was named.
It was given the name John Doe.
And she explains as to why it took the form it did when it killed Van Fleet. Because, like, apparently that tumorous prom queen was a sideshow geek that terrified him as a kid and gave him nightmares. So it's like, oh, this thing can look into our memories and take our deepest fears. Kidwell was looking for her monkey, and so it took the form of her monkey. And she's just like, it's amazing. This Earhart is a Dr. Pretorius straight up. She sings the praises of something she barely understands.
Right. It's actually a great scene where she's going on about the it being the ultimate intellect, and it has, oh, it's all about the purity of self-preservation, later they start to talk to it because they're talking to it through the machine, and Hiccup is like, okay, well, what does it want? And she's like, well, I don't know.
Let's ask it.
You were just praising it as the ultimate intellect, and you don't know what it wants.
So they're just like, ask computer question, get computer answer. They're like, what you want? To go home. Why? I'm dying.
And it's a great scene where Hiccup is like, yes.
It's just like, let it die. And then Earhart is like, no, we must let it return home. And so they begin to repeat the experiment once more on their final test subject to open up this portal or whatever. But also just imagine the fact that this lady got paid to just lie on a bed being naked and twitching every now and then. Like, she got paid just to do that.
Oh yeah, she got a really good deal. Um, they do explain why they need to help it, which is that the thing is like in the systems, and if they don't help it, they won't let it go. They won't let them go, or they'll just sort of cut off the air or whatever. But yeah, their whole thing is like, we need to send it back home. And they do. They do the experiment. There's like a tense scene of like where you think the lady's head is gonna explode, but it doesn't. And we get a scene where a portal opens up. It's just a big old just red glowing blue line in the room, and Earhart does the ultimate in the scientific method, which is just to fucking poke it with a stick.
Well, no, first we see a close up of the monster in its natural form. And this thing basically looks like a slimy tumor covered in fingernail clippings.
It's so gross and not in a good way.
Like, also, what's always kind of irked me about monster designs? Why do they give them human like hands? Our hands are the way they are because we evolved to this point. Even modern apes don't have hands like ours. Like, they're much more palm with fingers and whatnot. It makes no sense for any monster to have human like phalanges and whatnot.
Especially one that seemingly exists on a plane of pure, like, consciousness and thought.
And also looks like a tumor with fingernails.
It looks like a melting boglin.
I thought it looked like a tumor covered in boogers and fingernail clippings.
It looks like a jack-o'-lantern made out of a living human head.
Oh god. And then, yeah, Earhart is like, I gotta see this! And she goes and looks into the portal for science after poking it with a pipe. And she jumps inside it without Hiccup realizing, because he looks back at her and she's gone. Then she hops back out. She's like, there are thousands of them! And they decide to stab her through with the pipe they stole.
Right, and then we get a good scene of like the monster staring down Hiccup, and he just starts to go to town on all the technology just
Well,
to like shut it down.
no, yeah, that too. And then the monster just like holds onto Earhart and just screams at Hiccup, and I'm just like, I would scream too if I looked like that.
Yeah, they could have really done a cool like Invasion of the Body Snatchers style like otherworldly scream there, and I think that could have been effective. But instead, it just kind of goes, ah! and it's very unfortunate.
Just
But so yeah, it goes back to its home dimension.
and takes
Uh,
Earhart's corpse with it.
I'm going to eat this later.
Snackies for the road.
But the lady eventually wakes up and like think of the emotions running through her in that moment where you went to sleep and now you've waken up and everything's destroyed and there's a stranger staring at your tits.
Nakey wakey.
Hey, wake up! Everyone's dead.
and she's and of course they end it in a very cliche way, in that she's asking what happened, and Hiccup says it's a long story, and that's when they roll the end credits.
Roll credits. And that brings us to the end of Shadowzone. So, Casey, was it as good as Alien or The Thing?
Nothing's as good as The Thing.
Nothing as good as The Thing. I agree with you there.
Overall, a decently watchable movie if you're in the mood for something dumb and a little cheesy.
Yeah, if you like B movies and you specifically like B sci-fi, I think that this is definitely one of those movies that you're gonna want to add to your watch list.
It's not the worst.
It's not the worst, and there's some pretty good scenes and some good, actually good narrative stuff going on.
And some pretty decent practical effects at points.
Right. But there is just also a lot of problems and a lot of bad things that do keep it from being a truly good movie.
But, I mean, we're not here to talk about good movies.
No, we're not.
That being said, on our next episode, we will be looking at 1990's Crash and Burn, going back to a film directed by Charles Band.
Apparently, it's the sequel to a film called Robot Jocks, but it has nothing to do with that movie, so we're not going to bother watching that first.
So yeah, look forward to that in our next episode. In the meantime, don't forget to apply your chapstick. And maybe properly dispose of your fingernail clippings.
You know, you can do both. You can do both. Well, I wish you all an absolutely horrible evening, and we will see you all next time.
Bye!